Is your organization taking the emergence of artificial intelligence and how it will impact its future seriously? Today, on the 59th Live Cybersecurity Awareness Forum, we're stepping back from the fear, uncertainty, and doubt and hype around AI to learn what organizations should be doing to prepare themselves for responsibly managing AI. Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Wright, and today we're going to examine some of the issues around governing an AI program or AI within your security program. Um, I'm CEO of ClickArmor and Chief Engagement Officer, and I'll be your host for today. And the CSAF is an open collaboration group for anyone who is passionate about security awareness and human risk management. If you're a security awareness manager or security professional, or even just a business manager who's concerned about cybersecurity and human vulnerability, you're in the right place for the next hour. So we have a few new faces in our panel today. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves with 30 seconds to a minute, just to describe your name, your role, and what you're passionate about. And then we'll get started. And we'll do a quick roundtable of who's joining us in the chat or where they're coming from. So at this point, I'm just going to say that ClickArmor is the sponsor for the CSAF. ClickArmor is the employee confidence builder. We're really building engaging cybersecurity training to help employees learn how to face risks in the real world. We'll talk a little bit more towards the end of the session about ClickArmor, and hope you get a lot of value out of this session. So at this point, I'm going to start introducing our panel. So I usually go with the most experienced panelists first so that the newer ones get a chance to think about how they're going to introduce themselves. So boy, I think the senior one here might be Sajib, and then Elizabeth, and then Garrett and Jamila. So Sajib, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Absolutely, Scott. Hey, everyone. My name is Sajib. Thanks for having me here. I work as an IT director at Potluck, which is a market research firm working with mostly PE and consulting firms. Yeah, I mean, I started a little bit early in my career, even while I was in college. Like, I started working in tech, and it has been a passion ever since. And it's been almost 10 years now that I'm in IT and security. So yeah, I was born in Bangladesh. I came here when I was 15 in Canada, and like ever since I've been living in Montreal. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be here talking about this amazing topic. And it comes in time because recently we just updated our AI development policy, so I have a lot to probably
Excellent.
input based on the applicable frameworks, obviously. So, happy to be here. Thanks for having me,
Yeah,
Scott.
thanks very much, Sajib. Elizabeth, would you like to do a little intro?
Sure. My name's Elizabeth. I'm currently a student. Did work with cybersecurity boot camps for a few years, so I've met several different people from various backgrounds. And I have a friend who had business email compromise of one of his clients. So his company actually lost money because the client paid someone else. And that kind of got me more interested in really pursuing how to protect and secure what we already have as infrastructure. So AI is something that a lot of companies are adopting, trying to say, use AI to help you write better emails for our marketing and things like that. So this AI governance is a really big deal for me right now.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that, Elizabeth. Garrett, I'm going to let you go next.
Greetings, Garret Grajek, a cyber innovator, 15 patents in cyber AI, SSO, two-factor. It created companies like SecureAuth, which was the first two-factor IDP, sold for over 200 million. Now I've created UATest, which is a focused identity governance platform with a lot of relevance into the AI world. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Garrett. Jamila.
Yeah. Hello, all. I am Cemile Küçük. I am a lawyer and a techie. I've been a lawyer for almost 17 years now. For the last 7 years of my career, I've focused on data protection and AI governance topics. So thanks for having me.
And you're joining us from
Istanbul, Turkey, of course.
Istanbul. That's excellent. Great stuff. So just before we jump into context, I'm going to just do 30 seconds to a minute of context on some slides I created, but I'm going to turn it over to Garret, who's got some deep contextual information for us. So I'll let him introduce the topics a little bit, and then we'll go on to our open questions. We'll do 3 open questions for the panel, and anybody can jump in with chat comments or questions as well. And throughout, I'm going to actually enter some poll questions for the audience to react to, and then we'll review the poll results at the end. So before we get into the context, I'm just going to do a quick roundtable. We've got people from Toronto, Ottawa, Raleigh, North Carolina, Florida, South Africa, Oshawa, Ontario, Albany, New York. Wow, there's like 30 people. This is a big group today. So sorry if I miss your location, but Fort Mill, South Carolina, North Carolina, Denver, and Columbia, Maryland, Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and Uganda. Excellent. And Chile. So some really good representation internationally. And so to get started, I'm just going to share a couple of slides, and then I'll turn it over to Garret and let him do a little bit more. Now, my stats and stuff here is not very elegantly formatted, but if anybody wants to help in the community by providing some stats and graphics for us on occasion for our panels, that'd be awesome. But in the meantime, my boring stats here are that 77% of organizations currently have an AI governance initiative underway, but it actually goes up to 90% for organizations that are already deploying AI, which makes sense to some extent. And 47% of organizations consider AI governance a top strategic priority. Then we've got more, 3/4 of organizations report having AI usage policies. So the employees are starting to see evidence of that. And 14% enforce AI assurance at the enterprise level. That's certainly more complex, so it makes sense. It might be a little harder, taking longer to get that in place. But 44% of leaders say their AI governance process is too slow, and 24% find it overwhelming. So hopefully we can help with that today and make it a little bit more navigable. But the top barriers to effective governance include speed to market pressures. So they're trying to get things done, and I'm not sure what it means by and disconnected systems. So, or maybe disjointed, perhaps, but maybe Garret will be able to, will be able to help us on that. And just a few things I wanted to mention about what I think is in any security program and governance, you're going to have a number of these elements, but from an AI perspective, ethics, of course, is important. Having a set of policies and procedures, and orienting it with risk management and regulatory compliance is important, as well as having proper organizational structures, roles and responsibilities, training and awareness, continuous improvement, and reporting. How is it going? How do you keep it continuing to improve? And you can't do that without reporting. But also maybe consequences for non-compliance. Do you need to have things in place there as part of the enforcement to make it so that people will follow those rules or guidelines? So I'm going to stop sharing. And Garret, are you ready to share your stuff?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. There we go. In theory, I'll be showing a screen. Can you see when it says state of AI? What is AI governance?
State of AI governance? Yeah. What is AI governance? Excellent.
Yeah. So straight out, because I just did a whole discussion on this and doing more, it is governance. Governance is a good word, y'all. I mean, it is. It's not, because I come from straight, build stuff, patents, whatever. And then I got into governance and I had to look it up, got some certificates on it. Governance is just the adult in a room saying, hey, we said we're going to build this. Are we really building what we're building? And I mean it. That's the start of governance, right? Or are we so off the mark from the beginning that, man, we got to rethink this? And that does include I don't think anyone in this call, and most IT people are good, build malicious, software or software that damages the community. Okay. But inadvertently we can. And that starts with, what is the regulations? Well, there is a regulation now, y'all, in the world, right? And and as usual, the Euros have, started with it. And that's just how it plays, right? America, the East builds, Europe regulates. That's not, I don't think I'm giving anything that shocks the world by that one. And if you look at it, what they did is not bad. Okay. We just got to take off the, oh, what are they doing? Blah, blah, blah. They basically said, you've got to understand what the hell you released. That's really what they said. And it is governance 101. What did you release? Where does it fall under what category? And you, the developer of AI, it's your responsibility to understand it. So if you're in that market, you should understand. And what they did is they straight out banned some stuff. They straight out banned stuff, like the whole China social scoring, that type of stuff, and said, no, that we are not going to allow that in any products or offerings, right? But then there's other stuff about biometrics, because I'm working with one company and talking to them. You got to start looking at how you're doing it. So that's what it's not a, AI, everything has to be governed thing. It was a straight out first enterprises have to understand what they've developed in AI and where it maps. Okay. Now, for the rest of us, okay, what is governance? What is this stuff? And I took a whole bunch of quotes, which I liked, because they agreed with, that's how we do quotes, agree with these. If you want to start with AI governance, start with what cyber governance are already doing. I mean, if you do a mappings, and I'm going to a little chart here, of if you got your enterprise set up for some framework that's decent, like the CSF 2.0 or something, right? And you put those same principles into your AI, you got a really good start.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense.
A really good start, And then I list a few of them here, right? There's the NIST AI RMF. Now we all can have opinions. I would have to say, of these, this is my least favorite of all of them. I think it's way too general and a way too what gives governance a bad name, right? That it's real nebulous, real hard for us to understand, us techies, what this is. The ISO 4201 is what ISO usually does a good job. It's focused on controls, etc. I'm going to skip one and talk about the other. MITRE Atlas. If you're into pen testing and that's your thing, I seriously ask you to look at MITRE Atlas. They did a really good job of saying, we are MITRE, we're good at helping enterprises understand their threats and vulnerabilities. They did a nice job with that. If you're developing, I like the OWASP framework, okay? And I think as they've done in the past with their other work, they've done a real good job of in development, helping us understand standards. They've done a real good job of stepping through how to govern AI. And I believe that if these bottom three, if you focus on what they're saying, whatever regulations come out, you'll be in good shape. Okay. So that's my, high level, Scott, when I start this discussion and say, what's out there? What's the regulations?
Yep.
What are the frameworks? And where do you come from it? Right. And I think if you're a developer and you're developing AI, looking into the OAuth stuff is a really good way to start. Okay.
Excellent. Well, that is very helpful, I think, for everybody. Garret, thanks very much. So the next thing I'm going to do is start a poll. Let me just get this stuff rolling here. Polls, quizzes, and question number one. And I'm going to let our panelists vote too, just to be transparent on this. So the first poll question is, we'll share my screen. First poll question is, has your organization adopted an AI governance framework? So yes, fully supported, one of those recognized frameworks that Garret mentioned, or you developed your own framework, or you're in the process of selecting or implementing, and maybe not, but you're planning to, and maybe no plans. So that's where we're going to start the polls, and we'll see how that comes out. We'll go back to that question in the future. So now the main question I'm going to start with for the panel is, what are the most significant risks related to things like bias or privacy violations or maybe other things introduced by AI in cybersecurity, and how can governance frameworks help mitigate them? So we've done a couple of panel sessions before on risks around AI and deepfakes, and it's a little bit, I don't know what you would call it, a little bit of hype, a little bit fantastic. But what are the real risks that we're trying to address when it comes to a governance framework, and how does the framework help? So I'm going to ask panelists to use your, if you can use your hand icon, raise the hand, or just raise it so I can see it. And I'll try and get you in order of when you have a comment. And if there are no comments or questions, I might pick somebody just randomly to lead us off with their thoughts. So I'm going to start number one with Garret, and then I'll see if anybody else has comments on it.
To me, the most significant risk straight out is bias. And having built a whole bunch of models early on, and it's still doing so, you just got to be cognitive of the data. I was in a real good seminar with, I think they were called Fire Mountain Labs. And he said, and he knew of every tool that was out there. And he looked at the audience and says, when it comes to data, there's no tools. You got to understand what data and what you're putting into your system. Anyways, so in my humble opinion, I believe bias based on data.
Interesting. So how does a governance framework sort of help with that?
Governance frameworks, what they do, especially look at the OS, whatever, they basically force you to step back, take a breath, and document what your practices are on them. And in that, and since I have great faith in IT people, if we all just do take a breath and do document and do look at what we're doing, the results are better. The results are saying, wow, right? We do just got this one data set from this one zip code, and
yeah, people should be able to help it become more transparent, right? And identify those issues. Yeah. Jamila, you had your hand up.
Yeah, actually, I want to mention first of all the EU AI Act's approach. It has a risk-based approach. You all know this infamous pyramid that also Garret just showed us. So it has this risk-based approach, and it is not actually regulating the AI tools. It is not regulating the technology. This part is important. It is regulating the use of AI, how you are going to use it. Actually, it's regulating just one category, which is high-risk AI tools. So prohibited is directly prohibited. So there is no regulation on those. Also, for the minimal and limited risk AI, you just have to best practices in places. There is no real obligation under the AI Act. But high-risk category is not about the tools. It's about how you are going to use these tools. Like if you are going to use it in education, in HR, in law enforcement. So risk-based is the main dependency in AI Act. So, but I also find NIST really valuable because before that, everyone was talking about responsible AI, trustworthiness, but no one was really knew that how it's going to look like. NIST gave us this, gave us a structured framework that we can understand how this going to look like. Also for the other, of course, ISO's 42001 is a great and really structured framework that we can use. But when it comes to choosing among them, companies can have different approaches regarding them. I am not sure if every company needs ISO certification. Yeah, it gives certification. And when it comes to the EU AI Act, it is a legal obligation, actually. But NIST doesn't have this legal teeth. It can't bite you, but it gives you a really structured and high-level principles that you can follow. They all work with the cybersecurity requirements, I guess. And the most important one for me was the data privacy because Garret chose the bias. So I want to go with the data privacy.
It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. So data privacy, maybe the second one. I agree with the bias one, the most important concern. Yeah.
Excellent.
Well said.
Elizabeth, do you have any thoughts?
The one thing that comes to mind is just in terms of generating content. When AI generates content and it's not transparent that this is AI generated, that's when people get into trouble with, on TikTok or various public forums where somebody's like, I don't know how to do what I want to do, so I'm going to get AI to help me. And then they make it all seem like, this is my book, this is my painting, this is my whatever. And that kind of moves into the business model of things of, this is the email. And if you're not checking and making sure that what this generative AI is actually producing is actually what you want, is it actually going to make my company look good? Is it going to make my business, you know, be recognized as a good thing, or is this just faster and let the lackadaisical idea that AI is better and AI makes it faster without the actual looking it over, making sure, just like when you're writing code, if you're generating code, the new vibe coding where AI helps you out, you really still have to be a developer and know, is this code going to do what I want it to do in a way that isn't going to do things I don't want it to do? So that's, to me, as this is moving really fast, the transparency aspect of this was actually written with AI so that people can then maybe have a little bit, I would have a little bit more pullback of, maybe I shouldn't trust it quite as much. Other people would say, oh, AI, I trust it. I would say, I don't trust it as much. So that's kind of the impact I see, the risk of trusting AI too much.
Excellent point. Sajib, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think Garrett, thank you very much for sharing those first three slides. It kind of gives a nice comparison between the different frameworks.
As Jamil says, with a little Garrett bias, because I'm a developer. So there you go.
No,
But
that's good. That's good. But I'm gonna point out the bias for you. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So, I mean, the first one, obviously on top of the list, as Garrett mentioned, it's bias, and the second one, as Camilla mentioned, is privacy as well. So these two are probably the most significant ones, right? But when we look, and obviously after that, you have the security and how you secure the entire development and all of that. Those are an obvious ones. But if you look into privacy, there's actually two ways that you can think about this. So the first one is obviously, if the leak of sensitive, like for the leak of sensitive data, if they get exposed or something, so there is a risk with that. But the second risk, which is also something that we probably forget to think about, is from an internal approach while we're developing any, for any AI development internally, are the team aligned or they're properly understanding what they're doing, right? In terms of information classification, labeling, and handling the personal data, right? So I started from support level 1 10 years ago, and 10 years later, I have more understanding of privacy than I've ever had before, right? But this was a constant improvement and learning of new things out there, especially in data privacy. So I'm not sure if all IT people or security people out there, they actually understand data privacy and different type of frameworks that's out there, and what are the different set of rules that they need to comply with when they're actually developing any any AI systems, right? So for me, I feel like recently when we did the AI development policy, I had to align the engineering team with the data privacy team to make sure that they all understand what they're doing, right? Because whenever a data privacy team sets out a policy, engineering team, if everyone is not reading it, then they're not sure that if they're training the right data, if they're masking the right data, or if they're producing, if the data that's getting produced are the expected results. So I found a big alignment here is necessary where every team needs to know a little bit more about the other team or the functions, at least on what they're exactly doing to obtain the final result, right? So that's, I think, one of the other risks as well when it comes to privacy.
Good point. I also want to just go to the chat a little bit and address some of the things people are saying there. And feel free as panelists, if you want to point something out that I haven't recognized that you think is something you want to talk about. So Maria mentioned, without proper governance framework, the use of AI poses risks, including uncontrolled ingestion of organizational data. I think that's a really important one that a lot of us don't necessarily think about, or maybe we do, but how do we actually control it? So the governance framework probably needs to consider that risk as well. And then I think mention of garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, it's interesting why the vibe coding doesn't have to do certain other controls or comply with automated testing and things like that. So any other quiz? I guess there's loss of intellectual property from Frank is a good one too. Some good examples. So I'm going to move on now to our next poll question. And
is there any way I can address the zero trust?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I love zero trust. Zero trust is basically, because I'm an identity guy, so it really just screams to me what the problems are. The problems of, hey, I did my identity stuff. I put up a firewall. I authenticated guys, and I'm like, that doesn't do crap. Okay, that's whatever. So I have a threat model. You mind if I show the threat model?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Okay. So here, I did this for a company here, and I said, let's just, and this is a sample, so I don't have to reveal anything they had. And I go, look at all these zones of identity trust you have in a AI project, right? You've got your external. You've got your, basically your web server layer. You got your building of the code. You've got your in this is like an AI chat. This is your help desk guys, and this is what two of the wonderful members, Sajib and Jamil said. You got your data, right? But you got 5 different zones of trust here, right? So what are you doing, right? I mean, first of all, and that's why I like governance. Have you quantified them? Have you quantified these different zones? And if you said, for this zone, I got to have a group that has these permissions. For this zone, I got to have a group that is this one. And I'm going to regularly validate who has access to those groups, And that's where the comment about zero trust, I think is 100%. I think AI development is 100% a zero trust problem. Right?
Wow, that's cool. Yeah.
Where we literally say we got to understand what users have access to which of the components, and we have to regularly validate those groups and say, this is what we said. So that's why I love that comment about zero trust. And thanks for letting me
That's
show
cool.
That,
A question for any of the panelists. Russell made a comment here, and I'm not an expert on SBOM or vibe coding. I know a little bit about what vibe coding is, but asked the question, where's the SBOM on vibe coding? So that's very, very jargony. So can somebody sort of break down what that question means and what you would respond to it? Oh, silence. Jamila.
Yeah, I mean, if Russell could break it down, is it like the supply bill of material on the vibe coding? I'm not sure exactly like where it's come, like what's the part of the question exactly?
Materials. I guess it is also an obligation under the EU Cyber Resilience Act. So yes, it's a good question because it would be really hard to create software bill of materials with vibe coding. It's like the ingredients of the ingredient. Like, you have this butter, but inside of this butter, it is not the whole recipe, but the ingredient of the ingredient, if I put it in the right way. So yeah, vibe coding will be posing a really hardship on creating this software bill of materials. And it's an obligation under the CRA, as I mentioned. And the components that doesn't comply with the CRA will lose the access to the whole EU market. So, yeah.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thanks a lot, Jamila.
Most cybersecurity training puts people to sleep. Literally. Death by PowerPoint results from slides and lengthy videos that employees click through just to check a box. But here's the reason why it happens. When training is boring, people don't engage enough to remember and learn. They forget within days. And worse, they develop bad security habits because the lessons never stuck. Your employees face real cyber threats every single day. They need training that engages their minds and builds muscle memory for making smart security choices. That's why smart companies are moving beyond boring slideshows to interactive, gamified learning that actually works. If you've had a recent incident from poor employee decisions or want to avoid the next one, it's time to wake up your employees with ClickArmor cybersecurity training. Visit clickarmor.ca to see how interactive, gamified learning changes everything.
I'm going to move to our poll question, and if you have other comments on things we've discussed in the past, then we can always revisit them. But just want to try and keep the pace moving a little bit. So our next poll question is: what challenges have you experienced, or do you anticipate when implementing AI governance? So a bunch of different things. You can choose any or all of them. Lack of management understanding or support, difficulty integrating with existing compliance programs, insufficient technical expertise, keeping up with evolving regulations, addressing bias and fairness, or ensuring transparency and explainability. So be interested to hear how people respond to this poll question. And so brings us to our next open question, which is: what are the pros and cons of practices or frameworks such as NIST or ISO or the EU in effectively governing AI in cybersecurity? How can organizations adapt them to their unique environments? So it's great to say we have this standard we're adopting or a framework we're adopting, but it doesn't always fit, right? You have to make some adjustments. Jamila? Oh, you're on mute.
For the NIST framework, actually, it requires a significant internal motivation because, as I mentioned, it's not going to bite you. So you should be volunteer to implement NIST practices and principles into your business. But when it comes to ISO, actually, I can mention the poll question, the aligning with the other standards. So most of the companies are already familiar with ISO standards, especially the information security management. So it will help embedding the existing system. If you try to choose ISO, it will be easier for you to understand if you are familiar with the other standards. But on the other hand, it requires significant amount of resources and, of course, even external auditing costs. And for the AI Act, it is obligatory. So if you are in the jurisdiction of the EU or you are a provider who wants to put their AI tool in the EU market, you have to comply with it. There is no running away from it. I think best approach would be defining some criteria for your business, and there is no one size fits all solution when it comes to frameworks. You should create your own unique governance framework with using the already existing ones. Also, your business domain is also important. We mentioned a few of the frameworks, but there are also other frameworks like AI governance networks framework that is special to the education, for example. So there are other frameworks also out there. ISO is certifiable. This is a huge plus. And there are other certifiable frameworks. Even not certifiable, there are also trust labels on the market. Yeah, you can't showcase your implementation of NIST, maybe. So you need a huge internal motivation in your company for implementing the NIST.
All right. Thanks, Jamila. Maybe I'll go to Sajib and see if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been always, like someone that is very keen on like always recommending NIST frameworks because it is very easy to start with. Obviously, like ICO, I find like, it's always like a gold standard, right? Like, if you get it, it's really good, but it does require significant resources on that. Being a North American company, like if you can actually start with NIST, and then after, like get a audit from like, organizations like, the AI CPA SOC 2, and if you have AI within as a trust service criteria, I think that's a good start. But then, like if you take all your internal established controls and, like go for a certification with ISO at a certain point, you're going to see that there will be a lot of controls that will already overlap, and then you will probably have to, run that extra mile to make sure that you get the certification. So it's very easy. For at least according to my opinion, to start with NIST, because a lot of plain language, it kind of breaks down a very complicated terms, and also like, govern, map, manage, and measure is well defined within the entire framework. So I would say like, it's something that you can easily apply, not probably every bit of it, but like take the things that is aligned with the organization's current objectives, and like try to fit it within. Like I find like it's very easy to fit everything that you need probably just to start with, and then after, over time, every year you do those risk assessments, and you see that, hey, like this part I need to integrate, that part I need to integrate. So going forward, it's an improvement process on a yearly basis. But to start with, I think it's easy to go with the NIST. And I think this is what Garrett said, that maybe it's not the best, but like with ISO controls, like it's probably, something very like complicated to start with, but it could be something that could be used at a very mature state to make sure that everything is airtight.
Cool. And before I go to Garrett, I would give him the last word, but I want to mention Elizabeth made a good comment in the chat. Elizabeth, do you want to talk about, your view on the difference between governance and security?
Sure. I mean, when you're securing your company, you're taking out the risk of being breached, to have your network compromised and people can then extract data. Governance for the AI, there's risk to a person's liberties or rights, or maybe a harm to an organization's reputation based on how the AI is responding. But it's not about protecting the AI from being breached or accessed. You're trying to protect what information is being fed in and what information is being let out of just the AI section, which if it's just a company generative AI chatbot that you have for your employees, that should be on a very networked, segregated system. But that's part of the security team, is to make a segregated, network people make a segregated area for that to happen. And that's a group of people and several departments maybe working together. If you're a small group, maybe you're the person doing all the things, but the security aspect of whether your company gets breached is not really what we're talking about as far as AI governance.
Right.
It's like a subset of what you do in your organization.
Well put. Excellent. Garrett, I imagine you've got a little bit of a comment to wrap things up on this topic.
One slide, I'll talk to.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
nothing wrong with the NIST AI RMF, but I'm just saying, if you're developing, and if you're, the state of Kentucky, or, whatever, you got the resources, rock and roll. NIST AI RMF is great, but there's 64 different controls that you have to go through. So just, as Ajib said, just get ready, buckle up your pants and get ready to do some work.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, so as long as you're good at that, right? But when I was asked to help someone, I was like, okay, I took a look in real time and said, this is how many guys you got, this is what you do. I do believe in governance, and the worst thing the governance world has been done by the system integrators. That's my controversial thought of the day. I mean it, because they have told everyone that governance is compliance. Governance is not compliance. Government is risk and being the adult in a room for the company. That's what governance is. Anyways, so if you believe in that, which I believe in governance, right? Then I looked at the OWASP and said, hold it. I got to give a quantifiable action plan to this, right? not a, hey, this is going to take, 15 college kids in 3 years, which you know what I'm talking about, Scott, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, whereas OWASP says, hey, if you're going to start an AI project, take a look at these 6 things. Look at who you're giving access to. That was that, slide. Look what your regulations are. This. Don't forget about data privacy, right? Identify your sensitive data, understand what the hell the components you're using, and do some threat modeling. And to me, that's a nice, rational, quantified way to start your AI project. Okay. But like I said, if you're GM, Ford, the country of Denmark, rock and roll, you know what I mean? All good.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to go to our last poll question, which is, in your opinion, what is the most important benefit of strong AI governance? Is it reducing risk of breaches and cyber attacks? Is it building trust with stakeholders? Is it ensuring compliance with laws and regulations, promoting ethical and fair use, improving business performance and innovation? I imagine we all feel that many of these things are important, but it'd be interesting to see sort of where the majority of people land on that. So we'll let that poll run. And so our last question for the panel is, in what ways can security professionals foster a culture of ethical AI use within their organizations, and what role should training and awareness play in that effort? So anybody want to start that off in the panel? Sure, Sajid.
Yeah, I think it is a very important responsibility. This question is something that I've actually reflected on yesterday, and I was like thinking, like where should it actually start? Um, so I work in a startup right now, and I've been working with startup for the last 6 years. And every time my goal was to take these startups through some rounds of funding and make sure that I push forward, and make sure that I improve the privacy and security in the meantime, so that like we get more clients, get more business, and the company can continue expanding in Europe and in North America and any other regions, right? One thing that I've seen that played a huge role is so obviously, like I've touched the technical part very, very deeply in the very beginning years of my career. But slowly, I've realized that if I don't shift myself away from deep technical stuff to a very analytical approach, then I won't be able to probably improve the organization, because it's not only you, the responsible person, to improve security, improve privacy, or any other thing that is information technology related, right? Everyone has to play a role in the organization. So how do you do that? It's a constant approach of how do you teach your internal people or team to make sure that they understand all the technologies that are coming out, right? So how do you roll out your policies properly, and how do you develop each policies in a way that everyone can understand these policies and not just there just for the sake of being there, right? So we don't do the security for the sake of security, right? We need to make sure that we're basically building an approach to it where we're following proper hygiene every day, right? For me, I would say that first of all, you need to kind of get out, as an IT professional, you need to get out and learn other stuff. I find knowledge on privacy stuff is super important, even you're just an IT professional. If security is something that you really love, then probably go out and take those certifications to understand how security plays a role from a very high level. How governance plays from a very high level. Governance is not equal to security, as Elizabeth mentioned, and there was a chat in there. So yeah, I mean, we need to understand this concepts with deeper meaning to understand how we should approach it at a company level, right? So there needs to be also a balance between these frameworks and how you implement security and privacy within the organization, and also the business context and what are the needs of the business, right? So you cannot just do security, privacy, and your business is losing a bunch of money where you're not actually, focusing on things that are needed, right? So I would say, start with what you need, right? and try to make sure that you go out there and read all the resources that are made available to you. It's not about should you go for ISO or NIST, go with the ones that fits your current business needs, right? Like if you're a European company and European startup, probably you will have more need to actually comply with the framework of ISO, right? But if you're a North American company, probably, just going for NIST should suffice in terms of your requirements, right? Just to kind of put it out there, like OpenAI is not certified ISO, right? So that is a big thing. So they only went through the audit of SOC 2 Type 2. And when I went in and asked the questions like, okay, your chatbot, that's what we're using. At the beginning, I think it was 2 years ago, they sent me a SOC 2 Type 2 for just the API, and did not give any documentation on the chatbot usage, right? So that's the thing. So make sure that you only comply with what's needed. Make sure that your business is making enough money so that it actually, supports your growth and your initiatives within the company with all these governance and framework and privacy improvements. And at the end of the day, it's very, very simple, I would say, in terms of like a healthy approach, not just security for the sake of security, and make sure that everything that you're doing or any initiative you're taking is playing a role overall. So that would be my approach to it.
Excellent. I'm going to go to Garret next.
Oh, I agree with most of the stuff you said, but that's probably because we both started in QA. So I'm like, that's the right way to start, But here's what I always see with the security. There's a real person that I listen to, my sensei, woman named Karina Clever, and she runs a GRC practice. And she looks at the audience and says, understand what you're delivering. And that's what security guys always understand your use case. And so, Jeep, that's what I think coming from QA. You understand the product, you understand you want. Your company maybe has nothing to do with 37 of the 64 subcategories in this AI RMF. Be the adult in a room and rip those out and say, hey, these are the ones we need to focus on. There's actually 17 controls that we have to quantify here. And that's by understanding your use case, understanding your business practice, and then the stakeholders and your company will respect you easy because they know that you did your time before the meeting. You're not just slapping on something, out of Washington onto them. You're saying, hey, I took the time. I already rinsed this out. These are the things that we have to focus on. I think that's what the right way to do security and governance.
Excellent. And Elizabeth, do you have any comments on the ethics and awareness issues?
Just as far as being aware, if people are aware that what they're using their LLM or their just generative AI for, that really can help to understand, if you help your people be aware, why are we using this? What are you allowed to use it for? Do you have those kinds of things in place? Like there's a lot of what are you allowed to what things in our company are you allowed access to? There should be a whole set in that framework, in that area of saying, as far as AI, what area of AI are you allowed to access? What things can you put into the AI to help you write or do things? And, that's going to be an awareness thing that, and again, you have to, like Garret keeps saying, you have to be the adult in the room. You have to be the one that says, here's what we actually need. This is what we're really working with. These are the real world actual implications. This is not jargon oriented. This is actual, this file, those files, this folder, that entire subnet, whatever it is, you need to be able to know what those are. So yeah, from a quality assurance background, from any kind of understanding of the business itself, you're going to be able to make those decisions. If nobody's able to make those decisions, somebody has to sit down and say, okay, we need to take a moment and figure out what are the things. We can't just let everything run crazy.
Excellent. Jamila?
I think ultimately the goal of AI governance and its communication actually is to transform AI from a potential liability into a trustworthy asset for the companies. So fostering an environment in your company that let innovation and doesn't hinder it. And of course, a development in ethical and secure boundaries is really important. So the ultimate goal of this whole thing for me to enable innovation and with, of course, within the boundaries of ethical practices.
Oh, Scott, you're on
Yeah,
mute.
I was on mute trying to get rid of some noise in the background, but yeah, I think that's really interesting to hear everybody's perspectives on these things. I guess one of the things I wanted to just introduce as well is Russell made a good point about, the why should people care? It's really important for when you're starting to get people to change any kind of behavior or rules in the organization. They need to understand why, or else they're going to start finding ways around it. And so awareness in general is making sure people understand that it applies to them and why it applies to them. But then there's the education part of it, which I think we need to go beyond just awareness, because in a 5 or 10 or 15-minute little course or quiz, it's hard to get anything other than the fact that, oh yeah, I guess this stuff's relevant to me. Whereas one of the things that I really have been passionate about over the last 15 years is making sure people understand. Once they understand why, let's get them to understand how they can implement this stuff and how it is relevant to them. It's not a one size fits all across the organization. As Sajib said, you first have to pick a framework that's relevant to your business model. I think Jamila said that too. But I think it's within the organization, individuals need to understand how it's relevant to their role. So those are the things that I'd like to sort of focus on. I'm now going to just move along and start a quick infomercial just to let people understand what ClickArmor is about and why we sponsor this program. So let me get this going for you very briefly. And I'm not getting it, am I? Yeah, I am. Okay. I just need to put it there. Can anybody see that? Maybe not. There we go. Okay. Sorry for the rough transition there, but I did want to let you know that ClickArmor, as a security training company, does have the capability of providing training on AI. And right now we have a module called Security Risks from Artificial Intelligence. That's aimed at your general employee awareness. So this is helping people understand both why and how in some ways to avoid the risks. So it's a fun module. It starts with a story about a robot that's escaped from a factory and is out there trying to warn people about the risks of AI. So it's a little bit of fun. And we do provide a lot of different kinds of what we call game mechanics that keep people focused. We know that security itself is not a game, but people generally need some gamification in their lives to keep them engaged on things we want them to focus on. So that's all I'm going to say about ClickArmor right now. But if you're interested in understanding a little bit more about how we help people go beyond just awareness and checkboxes and help educate people where there is risk and you need to help them work more securely, love to chat with you about that. So let's go back to our poll questions, and I got all the results mixed up. So let me just try and see if I can find what I need to. I'm going to go back to I'm just going to go back to the browser where I pulled these things out. It's a little easier. There we go. So question number 1 was, has your organization adopted AI governance framework? So the largest returns or results were no, but we are planning to in the near future. And yes, we've adopted our own internal custom framework. So that's kind of interesting to understand, that people are not necessarily choosing the frameworks that are out there. I'm assuming that in that answer, they're not just starting with an acceptable framework and just tailoring it a little bit. It looks like they're developing their own. So that's really interesting. Secondly, I'm going to say the poll question number 2 was, what challenges have you experienced when implementing AI? an AI governance framework is lack of management understanding and support. That's not too surprising. We see that quite often in responses to poll questions about, what your challenges have been. And then keeping up with evolving regulations. So, there's not a lot of regulations. I expect we'll probably see more soon, but the EU and its AI regulations have actually been pretty important and leading. So ensuring transparency was also up there, and difficulty integrating with existing compliance programs, which interestingly, that goes back to, what Garret said at the beginning was start with, if you could start with your current governance frameworks and apply them to AI, then you're halfway there, or maybe better, right? So interesting results there. And in a minute, I'm going to ask the panelists just if they have any quick comments on the poll results, and then we'll wrap it up. So in your opinion, what's the most important benefit? Reducing the risk of breaches. So it's interesting. We talked about, the idea that security isn't governance, but governance certainly does have the objective at some point of reducing those breaches. And ensuring compliance with laws and regulations, building trust with stakeholders and customers, and promoting ethical use. So I'm going to turn it over to the panel. Anybody have any final comments on those poll results? Sajib.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one quick thing. I think the second question was, what is the main difficulty of the adoption of of any AI framework within the organization?
Yeah.
And I think it was the lack of understanding from management's behalf.
Yes.
So it's the second question. Yeah. So one of the things that I always say that I know, like whenever there is a problem, I always start with myself. Like, what am I doing wrong? That it is like I'm not getting the expected result, right? So there is a huge responsibility in that case, that what are you doing to break this information down for your management, right? Because their focus is not always at where you were thinking, right? So how are you communicating these risks to your management as well, right? So if you don't break complicated terms down into very simple terms and like kind of convert it into business risks, then like you're not doing your job of like basically making sure that the company goes forwards from an information technology perspective, right? So one example that I could share is that our last year's tabletop exercise for incident response that we did, our COO and CEO didn't want to be a part of it because they thought that it was a waste of their time, and I made sure that I sent them an email saying that this is not a choice and you have to be there to understand how this rolls, right? So there was no pushback because my CTO had my back on that. But once they became a part of the meeting, right, they understood that whenever there's an incident that occurs, what is the entire workflow that goes on behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
And how the IT and engineering team work together to make sure that they actually get to the resolution. They know what is GDPR's regulation if we don't, like let our customers know that their data has been breached, right? It's up to a $20 million, or I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, 10% of your annual revenue, right? So, so these are some strong regulations that they need to know, and even though they're not technical enough, at the end of the day, it's your kind of responsibility to break it down to make sure that they understand it, so that they also understand their own business risks, right? So super important that you communicate effectively in plain communication style.
Excellent. Anybody else have any last words?
I'm just going to go on top of Sajib. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, you can go.
You go ahead.
Okay. With business risk, but to understand business risk, you have to understand what the enterprise is delivering. And if we stick to that, understand your use case, understand what you're delivering, and then layer on top of that, and then you're not the annoying security guy.
Yeah, that's right. And for us, it's super easy because we're in market research and we have so much respondent data, So
right. But that's what you understand. Hey guys, this data can get us a lot of trouble with GDPR. This can get a lot of trouble in the news. We've got it. This is our sensitive data, right? And you're not, talking network protocols or some group. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I was
Elizabeth.
just going to say, in the middle of this, as as Jamil was saying, the goal of AI is innovation, and that's actually inherently risky. Innovation itself is inherently risky. And the whole purpose of governance is to help mitigate risk. It doesn't make it not exist. It just helps you understand what is the risk and how are we going to handle it. And the goal would be to make things work well without harming anyone or anything. So I look at this and say, you know, a lot of times people try to figure a way around the the parameters that are being put in place because they're trying to innovate. They're trying to do something new and different. So it's going to kind of go against things, which is why, as you know, we've heard many times in this forum, it's better to have somebody that you can talk to in the security department, to be not the Department of No, but let's talk about how we can help you do the thing you need to do in a secure way. So what comes to mind is, you know, people say, well, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. And I would just encourage anyone in a security and risk environment to make it easier to get permission than forgiveness.
Oh, nice. Well put. I love that. Excellent, folks. I'm going to allow people to stick around for a minute or two if there are chat questions, but I just want to wrap things up for people who have to move on to another meeting at the top of the hour. Just a note that we do publish the recordings of these sessions in the Cybersecurity Awareness Forum community site, so you're welcome to join us there. I put a link to it in the chat. Hopefully that works. And finally, our next session will involve Frank, who's in our audience today. We'll be talking about travel security, and it's an interesting topic we haven't covered before in the panel sessions. So hope you'll be back just next week. I'm going to try and get 2 in July. I'm going to be probably away in August. So love to see you folks back next Wednesday, and we'll do it all again, but with a different topic. So really do hope everybody can join us. Hope you got good value out of this session today. Please reach out if you have any questions, and do watch for the recordings. So I'll leave it at that for people who have to leave. But for now, I'm just going to keep things open a little bit if anybody has any final comments that you'd like to make. Jamila, did you have anything you wanted to add? I haven't heard from you in a little while.
Yeah, of course, we talked about how to choose the right AI governance framework in business context, but it doesn't end there, of course. You need to communicate it with your business. So getting buy-in from the board is such a huge thing, as also Paul showed us. Yeah, tailored education, raising awareness, and ongoing training projects, keeping AI literacy always on the table in the companies is really important. And of course, tailored approach. For example, while communicating this with the board, you should be mentioning high-level strategic alignment. And when you are communicating this with the developers, you should be guiding them. Actually, that's why what they are looking for. They are not interested in the other strategic stuff. So tailored communication is the key. After that, always keeping the AI aware culture alive in the company. Yeah.
Excellent. Well put. Sajib, you have a comment?
Yeah, there's 2 questions I think on the chat that Russell asked. So in terms of tabletops, do you include your counsel? So we do have a breach coach that is outsourced by another legal company, like, you know, from a legal company that we have. So we do not include them for internal tabletops, but they do know that what are their requirements. So we do have an NDA signed and also a contract signed with them and a retainer. So whenever an incident happens, we will get to them and basically make sure that they understand the entire incident. And from there on, they will provide us guidelines in terms of like if a forensics is required, and then, you know, like what would be the PR communicate, like what would be the marketing, like on behalf of the marketing team, what would be the communication that we will send out to our clients if there is a notification required. But we do have a very clearly stated policies. So 3 policies plays huge role over here. We have data breach procedure, written on our entire incident response policy, and also business continuity and disaster recovery policy. And every year that we do any tabletop, we do it very detailed so that every year we add that to our playbook, right? You cannot think of like every possible ways, right? So like every year that you do a tabletop internally with the team, just make sure that you kind of build a nice little library of any type of incident that may take actually place. So these were the two questions on the chat.
Excellent. Good stuff. Elizabeth or Garrett, did you have any last thoughts? I can't remember if I'd given you a chance or not. All right. Great. Well, go ahead, Garrett.
All good. And I have to give one shout out. And if identity governance is something you're struggling with, just look me up on LinkedIn or ping us at UAttest.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Garrett, especially for putting together the context stuff and providing the upfront overview. And thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, everybody who joined. I know a lot of people had to go, but it's been great to have you. Great interactions on the chat. So look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks very much, folks. Talk to you then.
Good stuff, guys.